They're related! Not by blood, but they're related! The Umbrella Academy is an American television series in the superhero genre, which is based on a comic book series of the same name. The series follows a group of adopted siblings with unique superpowers who come together to investigate their father's death and prevent an impending apocalypse. Or so I've heard. I've never actually seen it. Ever since I was in kindergarten, I have loved superheroes. I was never really a Marvel kid, though. Some may say I was quirky and not like the other girl. I just had different interests at the time. I remember I would come back home from school and my dad would have some channel that was playing CW's Flash, and I would sit and watch it with him for a good hour or so without eating or changing out of my uniform or anything. And I absolutely loved it. Eventually, my obsession with the Flash led to an obsession with the Legends of Tomorrow. If you don't know, Legends of Tomorrow is an absolutely balls-to-the-wall, insane ensemble superhero show. I had never seen anything like it before, and after I was caught up to it during a hiatus in 2019, I found a growing hunger in my heart for something that was like it. This is when my Netflix algorithm decided the best path forward for me was the Umbrella Academy. I saw the description in the preview and thought it was strangely right up my alley, but I just could not get into it. I watched the first episode probably 5 times, and it's a really great first episode, but I just could not get past it. Every time they would start the countdown to episode 2, I would exit and not come back for months. So, now I'm gonna learn to fall in love with the Umbrella Academy comics. One collected edition at a time. There are 3 so far, and today you're gonna see me going through the first one, the Umbrella Academy Apocalypse Suite. Hope you enjoy and come back next week to see me do the other one. Well, the second one, and then the week after I'll do the third one, probably. Yep. Okay, so it is currently almost 9 p.m. on a Thursday night. My voice is incredibly shot and it hurts to talk. And I'm very depressed, as you can see from the fact that I'm wearing a sweater and a hoodie, and it's the middle of spring in a South Asian country. And yeah, so I'm here. I have all 3 of the comics, so I'm going to start, obviously, with, I don't know if I can show this on YouTube, with the first comic. So I can't show the full cover, but it's like a naked looking female body that's playing a violin. It's white, not like a white person, white like the wall, white. And yeah, that's the first comic. It's called Apocalypse Suite, and I think on the cover is Elliot Page's character, because I remember from watching the first episode that the character played violin. So I don't know. I'm just gonna get into it. So right off the bat, these dedications are super cute. So Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, he says, "To my wife Lindsay for being my umbrella." That's so Rihanna vibes. That's literally what Rihanna would say. And then Gabriel Ba said, "My greatest joy when finishing a page of the Umbrella Academy was to show it to my brother to help me believe I'd just done that page. This book is dedicated to Fabio. It would not be possible without him." Aww! That is so nice. My sister's big. My sister's mean. So, I don't know, just thought that was nice. So I just read the prologue bit, so before the actual first part of the book starts. And it's kind of, if I remember correctly, it's exactly how the pilot starts. But it's so weird. The first page is this wrestler. I'll insert pictures, but this wrestler smashing a giant squid. And there's pictures of newborn babies covered in blood everywhere. And the images of the 7 Umbrella Academy kids that we get, they're so ugly. They're so ugly. And I don't mean it in the art is ugly way. I mean the babies are real ugly. Oh, and I don't remember this happening in the show, But in this comic, right away, like when they're introducing Hargreaves, they literally say like he's an alien, which I didn't know. Like no one mentioned that to me. Why wasn't I notified? Rude. Anyways, yeah. So I just got done with the first chapter, and basically what happened was, it's like 20 years ago, and it's like 10 years, like when all the kids are 10 years old, right? And basically, like, they're in France, and they have to, like, save the city of Paris from the Eiffel Tower. And it's, like, really interesting because it's, like, showing, like, all the kids' powers in work, except for number 7, because Hargreaves, who's their, like, adopted dad, is telling her that, like, oh, there's nothing special about you, like, just go and play your violin, you loser. And so she's, like, the only one of the kids that's not allowed to come and, like, save the city of Paris, except for number 5. And number 7, she's like, oh my god, where's number 5? And then Hargreaves is like, probably in the future, who cares? Who cares about number 5? Which is mean. They, like, break in to the top part of the Eiffel Tower, and they find the zombie robot of Gustave Eiffel. He's alive for some reason. These comics are really weird. Weirder than I ever thought the show was. Like, weirder than the show seemed to me from the outside, I guess. And, like, the Eiffel Tower is a spaceship? Yeah, the Eiffel Tower is a spaceship. And it, like, takes off. Like, the zombie ghost of Gustave Eiffel takes off. And then the 10 years old France section ends when number 1, Space Boy, tells Hargreaves that he wants to go into space one day. And Hargreaves is like, yeah, so true. And then it flashes to 20 years later, so I guess when all the kids are 30. And it shows number 1 and number 7. Number 1, who lives on the moon right now, and number 7, who, like, lives in a shitty-looking apartment and plays violin. Both of them finding out about the death of their adopted father. And then it shows number 1, like, going into Hargreaves' mansion, and then there's, like, a talking monkey who's named Dr. Pogo, who, like, confirms to him that Hargreaves is indeed dead. And then number 5 is there after 20 years of being missing, and he looks like a child, which, if you've seen the show, you know, because Aidan Gallagher plays number 5, but number 5 looks very much younger than Aidan Gallagher ever did in the show. Like, yikes. And then number 1 is, like, super confused, and then Dr. Pogo is like, yeah, whatever. We'll explain later. Let's move on to chapter 2. So I just finished the second chapter. Basically, it's like a bunch of the Umbrella Academy kids. Well, they're not kids anymore. They're like 30 years old. But Umbrella Academy people, like, are arriving at the funeral. So we have obviously number 1 from before. His real name is actually Luther. So I guess we'll call him Luther from now. And then his sister, the rumor, or Allison. I don't know what number she is. I don't like numbers. It's math. And then Seance arrives. I don't know Seance's real name, but he looks super goth, and tall. And he, like, floats down from the ceiling while Allison and Luther are, like, talking in front of, like, this statue. And then there's, like, these robots that are, like, they're saying, like, the Umbrella Academy has a high chance of reformation in 2 hours, 28 minutes, and 11 seconds. So basically those robots, it's later revealed that those robots were made by, like, this supervillain guy to, like, warn everyone if the Umbrella Academy, like, ever got back together. And then there's like number 5 talking about how shit it was for him, like the fact that he was like in the future, because when he time traveled and like went missing, he arrived at the end of the world, basically. And at first it was like super dope. He was like, oh my god, like no one can tell me what to do. Like I'm my own boss. Future, right? And then he's like, this is bad. This is really really bad. And then he like spends years and years and years, like 50 years, trying to figure out how to go back, how to travel back in time. Hargreaves said that it's not possible to go back in time, and it seemed like he was right. And then number 5's mannequin girlfriend, Dolores, who's not a real person, a delusion, I assume, said that he forgot to subtract the 2 from the 1. And then he figures it out, and then he goes back in time. But something went wrong, so instead of appearing a 60-year-old man like he was when he figured out how to crack the code, he appeared like a 10-year-old, which was how he was like when he left, obviously. And then there's Diego, who's number 2. He's I don't know what he does. I think he's just kind of goth and emo, and then he just like stands in corners, leaning against stuff. And then he's like investigating the death. He says the coroner estimates the time of death at 7:02 p.m., but the security cameras on the estate mysteriously stopped recording at 6:44 p.m. Convenient. And then he broke into the morgue, and he did an autopsy himself, and saw that he died from natural causes, which Diego doesn't really buy. And then they go to bury Hargreaves, and at this point, it's like Hargreaves' like Indian-looking assistant, the monkey, Luther, Allison, number 5, and Diego. Oh, and also Seance. And then their mom is there, and the mom is like giving a speech about how like the only thing he was guilty of was caring so much about his science that he sacrificed his internal relationships. And then Diego like whips her like funeral clothes off her, and then it's shown that their mom is basically like a mannequin robot type thing. Like she's not even like wearing any limbs underneath, and she's like, I would have worn the limbs, but they're so uncomfortable. And then they're like, oh, it's too bad Vanya, who's number 7, who plays the violin, isn't here because she could play the violin. Anyways, and I forgot to mention this before, but in chapter 1, when Vanya found out about Hargreaves' death, she was told about like this audition to be like a first chair violinist for something, right? And then in chapter 2, she shows up at the audition. And then she plays something, and then there's like a group of like white people in like masquerade masks, and there's like one like freaking Mojo Jojo looking guy, who's like, can I interest you in destroying the world? Which is weird. That's weird. And then he explains about how like he wants to like, he wrote this piece of music, where like if everything's right, then it's gonna facilitate like the end of the world, and he wants Vanya to play violin for it. And then Vanya's like, no, what the fuck? And then she leaves, and then the guy is like, don't worry, she's gonna go to her family, and families suck, so she's probably back. She's probably gonna be back real soon. Anyways, and then we cut back to the Umbrella Academy people, and it's like Luther and Diego like fighting out in the garden, and then number 5 says, the world was destroyed just 3 days after Hargreaves' death. Time is running out. Just as Luther is about to, like, shoot Diego with something. I don't know. And then, like, randomly, the carnival that's, like, that they can see from their house, like, sets on fire. Like, you can see, like, they show, like, a Ferris wheel, like, exploding. And then number 1 explains about how, like, that's those robots that, like, warned about the Umbrella Academy coming back together, and from that, they deduced that Vanya is somewhere nearby. And then, like, they're all, like, walking off, like Diego, like, dives into, like, the water and, like, swims away somewhere. And then Luther just walks back, and, Luther makes the decision that they're a team again. So, chapter 3, right? Nothing that interesting happened in this chapter. Let me think. It starts with Allison's like a flashback from when she was a kid. And that supervillain that made those robots in chapter 2, like kidnapped her, and was gonna like eat her or something. And then I think number 1 comes through and like tries to save her. And then the flashback ends there. And then most of the chapter is, I think most of the chapter is like the Umbrella Academy like fighting the robots that like blew up the carnival, and then Vanya's in a cab, and then she shows up to the situation, and but while she's in the cab, she takes like this weird like black and white pill. I don't know. She pulls up to the situation, and then Diego like yells at her, right? And then she gets pissed off, and then she goes back to those like the white people in masks organization, the WPIM organization, you could say. No, they have a name. What are they called? Literally, what are they called? Wait, stop. What? The Crusties. Yeah, they're called the Orchestra Verdamten. I don't know. Sounds German or Dutch or something, which is always suspicious. There are two types of people who I can't stand: the people that are intolerant of other people's culture, and the Dutch. Yeah, and that's chapter 3. It was super lame. I don't really care about fight scenes. I find them boring. I lose focus whenever a fight scene happens on screen. So why would I not lose focus whenever a fight scene happens on page? But you know. Chapter 4. So, chapter 4. What happens in chapter 4? Oh, it begins with that guy from that orchestra, the Mojo Dojo looking ass guy, experimenting on Vanya. And then he's like, yeah, I killed your dad. Yeah, I read his notes. I stole his homework. And he says that you're like super powerful. And then there's like Five and Pogo like flying around. Oh, I forgot to mention, the chapter starts and it's super adorable. It's like Vanya as a kid being like super depressed and like destroying things. When she was like 12. And then she's like crying, and then Pogo is like, you're not like the others, you don't need to destroy things to prove yourself. You're special. You're special. You're more special than you'll ever know. That's so sweet. Stop. That is so sweet. I'm gonna cry. What the hell? Anyways, yeah, Pogo and Five like fly around. Five is such a loser. What the fuck, man? And then we have like a scene where like Vanya's like transforming, because of like the stuff that Mojo Jojo guy was doing to him. It was kind of a creepy scene. I'll put it in a picture. Like you'll know when you see it. And then like Diego's bleeding, and Luther's bleeding too. And then Luther, Seance, and Allison, they like go out to do something. Oh, to be on patrol. So yeah. And then there's a scene where Five and Pogo are at like a diner and they're like drinking coffee. And then there's like, I'll put in pictures, I can't really describe it. But like some dudes coming looking for Five. And I think it's very like Istanbul, not Constantinople scene. If you know what I mean. Like I just got those kind of vibes. And after that scene, there's a scene where Mojo Jojo is introducing Vanya to the rest of his fucking orchestra. She's white now, like white like the cover, white like the wall. She's white, and she looks gay. Like she's white and gay. So, good for her. And then like she plays a violin, and then Mojo Jojo like splits in half. What the fuck? And it's like very gory. Like there are like intestines on the page. There's like half his skull popping out. Like it's very serious. And then the chapter ends with Vanya going like, or the white violin, the white lesbian going like, listen to me, we're gonna end the Umbrella Academy, and tomorrow we're gonna end the world. So yeah, 2 more chapters, and then we're done with this one. So that was kind of a wild chapter. Let me explain what went down. Let me explain the occurrences. So basically it opens with like this police guy like interrogating the waitress to the diner where Five and Pogo went to get coffee. And then she recounts how like those guys showed up and they pull a gun on Five, and Five like beats them all up, and she's really traumatized. And then Five says thank you for the coffee, and she leaves. And then he leaves, and then the cop that interrogated the waitress, he goes into his car, and it turns out Diego's waiting for him in the backseat of his car. And then he explains the situation to Diego, and then Diego's like, okay, that's quite suspicious. And then he also says that a lot of violinists have gone missing in the past few months, and then he said that could be connected to Vanya. The police officer says it. No, yeah. Oh, and then Pogo shows up in Hargreaves' office, and Five is there looking for Hargreaves' revolver. Five is being super emo. He's like, "You will never understand my," which is fair enough because Gerard Way, Gerard Way wrote this freaking book, in part. So, could be why that is. And he's like, "Okay, I'll explain what you missed to Pogo." And he's like, "Let's start with the Kennedy assassination," which was so random. And then we have like a random flashback to like Pogo being experimented on by Hargreaves, and then like Five like faints, which is weird. And then we cut to the roof where Allison and Luther are talking, and Allison tells Luther about her daughter, and then Luther's like, "Wow, that's crazy." And then they kiss. They kiss. They're siblings. They're related, not by blood, but they're related. They live together for their entire childhood. Anyways, and then Vanya shows up, and then she kills Pogo by like playing her magic violin, and she brings like her entire orchestra with her. And then she like shatters all the windows. She busts the windows of the Hargreaves mansion. And then Five is like looking depressedly onto Pogo's corpse. And that's chapter 5. Alrighty, the 6th and final chapter. Let's talk about it. Basically, all that happened in this chapter was Vanya, like, playing the violin with her orchestra, trying to ruin the world. And it was, you know, how do I explain this? It's like, she's trying to play the violin, trying to destroy the world, and then Seance, like, comes out of nowhere, and, like, he pretends to be Hargreaves, and brings, like, a bunch of kids, and he's like, "We're gonna stop you by playing, like, this song, like, this other song in a very specific tempo," and then he does, and he's so mean to Vanya. He's so mean to Vanya. He's like, "You're so useless, you're an embarrassment, you're such a loser," and I almost cried, like, I felt very personally attacked at that moment, but the thing about that is, at the end of the chapter, there's, like, a piece, like, a chunk of the moon that's, like, hurling down onto Earth. That's what's gonna cause the end of the world. And then, like, Seance stops it with his telekinesis powers, which, that was so random. That just really came out of nowhere. And then, Allison is caught up in a fight, and then she, like, loses her vocal cords, and she'll never speak again. Well, the doctors say that she'll never speak again. The entire orchestra, like, gets arrested, and some get put on trial, some get, like, sent to, like a execution. And then Vanya gets to a hospital and she survives, but she gets shot somewhere right before the moon starts crashing down onto Earth. Vanya gets shot. Yeah, and then she lives, like, but the doctors, like, they can't take the bullet out of her brain, so it's just in there now. And they don't think she's ever gonna be able to play violin again. And then at the end of it, Luther makes a sandwich. And I don't know, honestly, it just felt kind of It was kind of random. Like, the way that Seance, like, caught the chunk of the moon with his telekinesis powers, like, just out of nowhere. Like, it just kind of happened. It wasn't, like, cohesive. You know? Like, the story didn't flow like that. Like, I've been told it's supposed to. It flowed kind of, like that. And then like that. So I don't really feel like it was, like, properly resolved. Yeah, that's my reaction and review.